Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to Book Club. Tonight we're going to be talking about chapter 13 and 14 in The Slight Edge, about learn from your mentors and use your slight edge allies. I'm Melissa Allen. I'm senior gold and I'm here today with Jeanette Brown, who's senior silver. And so I'm super excited to share with you guys about these chapters because they were really good and had lots of good insight. So I'm going to let Jeanette go first and talk about chapter 13 to start us off.
Hey everyone, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, so I'm going to go over chapter 13, which was learn from the mentors. Can I just say this chapter screamed Plexus to me. Reading the whole chapter, there are so many good points that made me remind of how we model our team with the duplication and everything. So it talks about the third type of learning, which is knowledge through modeling. So for me, that's like when our sponsor, when we want to do the business, it's like, okay, here's what you need to do. And they show you, and then they lead you through the steps on what you need to do to have a successful business. I also liked when it goes, if you want to learn how to do something well, go find someone who has already mastered the skill and apprentice yourself. So another thing that made me remember is they're like, go follow these diamonds, do what they're doing. This is what you need to do to be successful, and giving you the tools to really be successful. The other part that stood out to me, going back to the mentoring on page 194, the part, it's amazing the impact one person can have on your life just from the influence on how they see you and what they see in you that you may not see in yourself. So an example I gave Melissa the other day is Melissa has always had belief in me that I could do this. And that is something she has really poured into me, and doing these tiny steps, like leading book club. It took her forever to get me to do this. I'm like, I'm not ready for this. And she's like, yes, you are. And so just really she's really poured her belief that she knows I can do this and be successful at it. The other thing from that chapter was when it was talking about you are the combined average of the 5 people you associate with the most in your life. And it's all aspects of your life, talking about relationships, financial health, attitudes, level of success in your career, and everything else about your life. That was pretty stood out for me, because you don't really think about that, but we hear it all the time, where you're going to act like the people you hang out with the most, and it's not just in one area, it's going to affect every area of your life. And then the quote about positivity. Longevity experts are now telling us that keeping a positive outlook is just as critical a factor to health and long life as diet and exercise. That was pretty shocking to me. Yes, in our team, we have a culture where we want to be positive, and it's always no negativity, and, but it's so hard, so easy to go back to having those negative feelings with anything. And so I thought those were all pretty good points from chapter 13, and how it really linked really well to Plexus and what we do as a team, having the good mindset, learning from our sponsors, and being willing to learn and do that duplication.
That's lots of good points. I really liked in this chapter too how it started out about talking about finding like a mentor and someone you can really learn from and emulate. That was a really good word that kind of hit home with me. And just gaining from them and finding someone that, like in The Slight Edge, it talks about, that is on that upward curve, that is doing those little things every day and getting better, versus someone that's going to be pulling you down and going on the downward curve, because that's how you learn. Like anything, even like Jackie talked about, starting and mentoring kids and students and like our babies, that you start out and you don't know everything. Same thing with Plexus, that you're not going to start out and know everything as you're new or as a silver, and that you have to learn. So leaning on your upline to learn things, going to the diamonds in our team page just to catch on to everything and learn. And then eventually you transition to that leadership role yourself, just as you grow and gain knowledge, and can then become that mentor yourself and can turn around and teach people all those things that you have learned, and pull them up and teach them the slight edge and how to create their own change and duplicate on down. And that's, how you reach so many people, that, you do it yourself. And then, like a teacher, as you teach, you're going to reach a class of 30 kids or whatever, and then they're going to learn and over time teach people themselves. Same thing in Plexus. As our downline kind of keeps reaching and reaching, you can teach way more people than ever if you were going to do one-on-one teaching. So I thought chapter 13 was really good too.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that brings us to chapter 14, use your slight edge allies. And it talks about just 4 pillars in there: momentum, completion, reflection, and celebration. And just how all these things can help create success and slight edge in our lives. So it starts out talking about momentum and the tortoise and the hare analogy again, about how in the end the hare wins, and it's that slow, steady growth that continues to get us there. And I really liked how it talked about having just rhythm and flow and, doing those things. So that way you don't have the crash and burnout and grow too fast and can't catch up and, don't make it. I kind of compared it to like rock stars, where you see they reach the top super quick and then can't sustain that. So it's the same thing. We want to keep growing and learning and being on book club like we are. So that way we can kind of keep up with our momentum and keep growing, so that we don't reach the top of like our potential, that we just continue to keep pushing that forward. And just finding that optimal rate of growth, it said, for yourself, and just having something that's never ending. And it kind of makes me think of, obviously you aren't going to find the perfect balance in life, but having enough action and doing enough things where you can continue to do it every day, instead of 1 or 2 days and then you can't keep up and it just doesn't have that same flow of growth as working consistently. I mean, obviously you have to find what works in your life as well, but doing that so that way you keep the momentum. And it's easier to keep the momentum than stop and start. The next pillar I talked about is completion. And it just asks about all the different areas in your life that you have things unfinished. Different projects you have, different relationships, things you might have to apologize or say you're sorry for. Just all the things that kind of end up weighing you down and kind of bringing back to your past and getting you stuck versus moving you forward and kind of freeing you. So that was interesting, because you made me think of in Plexus how we want to keep pushing out of our comfort zone, obviously following up with people and kind of completing some of those relationships. And it's always cyclical and filling that funnel, but also going back and doing the hard, scary things and getting out of your comfort zone, so that you can go through and complete that. You have this person you've been building a relationship with, but completing and finally talking to them about Plexus and finally kind of casting the vision you see for them, so that way you can move forward in the business too. And same thing like with the products, completing that you're helping them coach through whatever they're working on, starting with the products, kind of following up, finding the routine, and not just leaving it up in the air. The third pillar that they talked about was reflection, and just how being productive isn't, oh, I don't remember how they said it exactly, but how productivity and busyness isn't the exact, way to do, that you can fill your life with all these busy things. Let me see if I can find it. How they worded it. I often see people making the mistake of thinking that they are being productive because they're being busy. Being productive and busy are not necessarily the same thing. Doing things won't create success. It's doing the right things. So not necessarily filling your day and putting out fires all day long, but picking the things that are going to move you forward. Obviously, there's certain things in life that you have to do. You have to feed your children. You have to clean your house at some point. You have to, go to work if that's what you're doing, as much as some days I wish I didn't have to. But also being mindful of those things that are going to get you to your goals and prioritizing those things and making the time. And just how part of that is reflecting on what those things are and what's going to move you forward. So most of us here are business builders and want to grow and reach the next level and eventually want to be diamond. But what do we need to do to get there? So taking that time to kind of reflect and figure that out and not just do, because you can be missing something and missing a piece that could really propel you forward if you just kind of keep going and not thinking about it. So trying to journal or write in your planner what you are doing so you can look back on that. Doing coaching, mentoring with your upline, just getting feedback so that way you can figure these things out and then have the growth and momentum that you really want. And then the last pillar they talk about is celebration. And so not forgetting to enjoy what you're doing. Plexus does an amazing job at thanking us for the things we do, if I could say that word, and just giving us prizes and things we can earn and just celebrating us for what's going on. And I love our team that we do that together as well, and celebrating our upline and downline and sidelines and just building that community and spreading that community to others too, because we don't see that enough in life. That it talked about in the book, 1 minute praising, and the employer who goes around and actually, thanks people for what they're doing and gives them a minute to acknowledge the good things, which is huge because I know working at a hospital that doesn't always happen. And as an occupational therapist, people don't always recognize what we do. And so it really makes a huge difference when you get that thank you and that you feel appreciated. So learning to pass that on in our life too. Thanking, our family for what they're doing, the time that they're giving us, our downline for listening to us and taking our advice and taking care of themselves and sharing, and just so many things we have to be thankful for and praise people for, praising people for sharing and just stepping outside of their comfort zone, because it's all, big important things. And one last thing that really stood out to me was the story she put in there about the husband that had been married for 30 years and only said, "I love you" when he said his vows and didn't say it again. That, doesn't make the wife feel appreciated. And just because, he still feels it in his heart, not saying it out loud, doesn't do it full justice. So doing those tiny acts of gratitude and praising on a consistent basis in all areas of your life makes a huge difference. Do you have anything you want to add, Jeanette?
No, I agree with everything you said. Both these chapters were amazing.
Yes, they were. Well, then we're going to open it up to comments because we would love to hear what you all thought about the chapters as well.
Are they able to unmute themselves?
Yes, there, I'll answer for
Okay.
you. It's all good. I was like, my mouse wasn't cooperating. It's spinning and spinning. So I just loved the picture graphic that was in the middle of 219 about your philosophy creates, and then your actions, your attitude, your results, which creates your life. I think sometimes we try to complicate what we're doing, right? Complicate the small tasks. And it reminds me, there was a blog I used to follow, and she put out a book about the mundaneness of motherhood. And at the time, I had my sister's children here with us. So we had 5 kids, 13, 11, 4, 3, and an infant in my care. And I was like, will it ever stop, right? But because it was the daily doing, 3 meals a day, which meant like 27 dishes with 9 people, 3 times a day. Well, except for the one where the husband wasn't home. And then just the vacuuming and the wiping up and all this stuff. And it just really reminded me about what we're reading about, the little, you got to do it every day. Like you were saying, you can't just do it for 2 days and then not do it for 10 and think you would have the same outcome. It's like the people who go to the gym in January and on the 7th they stop, and in May they wonder why they haven't lost any more weight. Like there's a consistency rule that it's the little things done every day over time. I just love this book. I just love this book. But you also have to, which I was just really reminded about on our gold call with Fallon and Jamie, you also have to know why you're doing it, or you're not gonna. And that's so important. If you don't know why, you're not, and Michaela made this point, you're not gonna open your computer up, right? You're not gonna get on your phone. You're not gonna message that person. And so I'm just reminded again tonight that our whys are really the basis for getting us to believe that there's more for us. Just want to share that with y'all.
Thank you, Nicole. That was very good. And you're so right. Our why definitely is why we're doing all this, and makes a huge difference. And you're not going to do all the things you need to do and build your slight edge if you don't have a why, because it's just as easy to do the things, that aren't plexus related and aren't hard and scary and outside your comfort zone than to do it. So.
Okay, I'm going to talk. So I also really wanted to reiterate the whole, like, being busy does not mean we're being productive or getting things done. Like, it's really, really easy to be busy. And it's really, like, how many times have we heard that as an excuse to why someone can't write a Plexus post, why someone can't take their Plexus products, why someone can't share the business, or we offer to do a health and happiness event or something like that. And well, I'm busy. Well, yes, we're all busy. We all have things going on, but it's amazing what we can find time for. And I think that then is going to wrap back around to vision casting. And okay, I know you're busy. How much time could you put into Plexus? What time do you have? And if they say, well, I have 10 minutes, okay, in those 10 minutes, can you reach out to one person, put one Plexus post up, and follow up with one person? Yeah, I can do that. Like, really breaking that down and really helping people see that busyness doesn't always mean productivity. My husband is funny. He's like, I don't want to be busy to be busy. I'm like, I'm not trying to give you busy work, but there are certain things that need to be done, right, in our lives, in our household and stuff like that. So it comes back to prioritizing, it comes back to that vision casting. I mean, I've told people for years now, you guys, they're like, I'm too busy. I'm like, I have 4 kids and I'm working full time and I teach. Like, you don't think I'm busy? And I don't mean to be rude about it. I truly am like, but do you think I have time? Like, I make time. I'm diligent. I'm dedicated. I use my schedule to its fullest potential. I put my kids to bed, you know, not tonight, but when they were little, they were in bed. Um, and so really helping them to see that. And this book, you guys, is something that we can pass on to our friends and family, whether they're doing Plexus or not, right? Like, this is adding value. Talking about this book on, which I need to do more of, but talking about this book on our stories, talking about this book on our wall, talking about this book in person, like, this is something that's adding value to our network and our people. So it's getting loud in here. I will stop talking.
I'll talk. I have a little bit of something to share. So I really liked the chapter 13 about sorry, I should have had my thoughts together before I unmuted myself. Learning from your mentors. That just reminds me, this screams Plexus, right? Of just about being coachable. So it comes down to like people that buy products from us being coachable when we're like, hey, well, I would increase your ProBio 5 or drink more water, or you'll probably get better results if you eat healthier foods or whatever. Them being coachable in that way. And then also looking to our mentors for how we're going to grow. So we all want to be diamond, I'm assuming, on this call because we're making time for this call, or at least we want to be growing. So looking toward people that have already gotten there, looking toward, and you mentioned this, Jeanette, and I think Melissa, you did too, looking toward the diamonds, the people that have been successful before us in implementing the things that they're doing, rather than trying to come up with our own stuff and reinventing the wheel, or like doing things that are distracting, really focusing on what's going to get me to the next level. What do I need to improve on? And what are my strengths that I can capitalize on to get myself to where they are, and looking there instead of in other directions. I think that is what I took from that chapter.
Yes, I was gonna say that, but I'm trying not to talk and let other people talk. So I was just sitting here quietly, but I was absolutely thinking the same thing, Lauren, and it's so true. I mean, I remember Fallon saying that in the beginning. She was looking at what Kristen Abart was doing and what Lori was doing because they were both successful. And I don't know if you guys, some of you guys are new, but a lot of you guys already know this. Like, Lori is Fallon's upline, right? And so Kristen Abart and Fallon are both Lori's level 1s, and they both started at the same exact time. And Fallon was sitting at gold and Kristen was already like all the way up to diamond. So Fallon was looking at, okay, what is going on over here? What am I not doing right, or whatever? And so whatever they were doing, like, she was following suit. She was like, this is what is working. Like, I am going to do this as well, you know? And then she, of course, then flew to diamond herself. But absolutely looking at what our mentors above us have done and really being coachable with that. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's the nice thing about this business too, is that it is such a simple plan. It's just the hard part is doing the things. It's getting up and doing the exercising when we don't feel like it, you know. And for some of our people, right, like Elizabeth mentioned, well, I don't really drink water. I have a hard time drinking water. Okay, well, let's work on that, right? So it's like, it's just doing those little simple daily things that is the hard part. But if we can just get past this and do those things, oh my gosh, can you imagine where all of us would be? I know this was not talked about in these 2 chapters, but I missed last week, you guys. I totally missed all of you last week, but I had birthday girl. But remember when he was talking about how like 95% of people are like on the downward failure curve and there's only like 5% that are going on the upward curve? Like that spoke volumes to me. And it is like so true. I feel like the whole world needs vision casting. Like seriously, like we've got so many people that make excuses for different things, like nothing in particular, just like excuses for like everything. Anyways, that was not the 2 chapters tonight, but these were both really good chapters and this whole book is really good.
And I'll just add on too, going off what Lauren and Rochelle just said about looking for people that are ahead of you and what are they doing and kind of copying that. And I heard a good analogy this week about GPS. So we talk a lot about belief, and a lot of us believe that whatever rank we're after, that we can achieve it. But do you believe it like you believe your GPS? Like when Siri tells you to turn left at the next light, you don't question her. I mean, maybe you do if you know where you are, but you don't question her. You just say, okay, I'm going to turn left. And next time you don't go, I turned left last time. You want me to turn left again? And I'm just going to do the opposite. Well, guess what? You're going to get lost. And so think of looking at what other people are doing and copy it, like trust the process and have the kind of belief in it when you're talking to other people, even like you are their GPS. You know how to get to that end spot and they just need to follow you, and they'll sense that belief in your voice and the way that you talk to them and kind of the authority that you bring to the table. And so same thing when we're trying to build our business and grow, to trust what other people are doing, and then for you to have that confidence when you're talking to someone brand new.
Girl, you just took us to church. That was amazing. Yeah, so I just want to piggyback on that. Like, if you don't take action with belief, it's kind of pointless to take action, right? So like the mindset totally matters. And what you said is just the best example of that. Like we really do truly need to believe it, but there's like this human quality where we're constantly questioning, like, am I good enough? Am I good enough as her? And we start playing the comparison game and we start really like, well, could I be doing this? Could I be doing that? And yeah, I love the idea of thinking of it like a GPS and fully believing it, because anybody in this chat who's had a month, a moment, a week, several months where they're on fire, it's because their belief is there and they're taking action with the right belief. So believing it, just like Whitney said, like, I feel like she just took us to church. That was amazing.
Well, and I have to say too, going off of that, like for instance, with the GPS example, right? You might get to the right ending eventually, but when your friend asks you, well, how did you get to that place? You're gonna be like, well, I don't quite know. I took this route and I did that. And yeah, we want something that's easy to follow, right? So that the next person who's following that path knows how to get there and doesn't take 16 wrong turns and take 6 hours, weeks, years later to get there than you did. So having a direct path and trusting that path is really important so that the next person after you can take the most direct route.
I think a good example of that is, I remember Rochelle sharing, so on my re-entry back into Plexus in 2017, she had she was literally leaving for Hawaii the day I joined back up. And when I had left the year before, she was Ruby. And I remember after she got back from Hawaii and we got on the phone, like, I knew the things because I never left the Pink Power page. I was in there for that whole year while I wasn't doing anything, which was good because it let me see all the things that were happening and what I was missing out on. But I remember Rochelle saying, you know, I did 3, 2, 1 to Ruby. Like, you could do 3, 2, 1. And she knew I had time on my hands because now I only have the one kid at home. And so I really did, there were no excuses. I mean, I have 30 minutes, right? I can do that. But I remember her saying, I did 3, 2, 1 to Ruby. And I'm like, 3, 2, 1, like, really? You just talked to like 2 or 3 people a day? Oh, all right. You know, I also remember her saying, and just keep going. Like, it might not happen in 6 months or 8 months or whatever, but just keep going. And here's what I know, even at Senior Gold, and this is something I was thinking about while we were on the other call just a minute ago. I know that there's timing for everything in our lives. And we've said it, a couple people have mentioned the whole comparison thing. I don't feel like I've done that. I felt like I've tried to be a cheerleader for those who are beside me and along with me in all our goals that we're all achieving and reaching for. And that's just super important to realize, that if you can get excited for your sidelines, it's only encouraging yourself, because if they can do it, you can do it, right? Like, be your own biggest cheerleader, and just don't let it be like, oh, well, it took me 11, it only took her 3 months. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just, we've heard a lot of this lately, but stay in your own lane with your head focused on your goals, but, you know, look up and recognize what's going around so that you can see that is possible. Because if nobody had gone before us, none of us would have the belief that it was possible. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yes, I love that, Nicole. I love that so much. We definitely do not need to be comparing ourselves to others. We all are on our journeys. We need to be enjoying our own journeys and staying on that consistent path. And yeah, I actually did 3, 2, 1 up to Senior Ruby. But it's the slight edge, and I didn't even know it, right? Like, I didn't know it. It's just doing those small, simple daily things and just never quitting. And Fallon told me that in the beginning of my business. And I have said this multiple times. I think I've even done a post on it, but the only difference between a silver and a diamond is time and consistency. And we will never fail as long as we don't quit.
Okay, I have one more thing to say. Well, I have more than that, but I have one more thing to share right now. So I just about how we were talking about, okay, learning from our uplines, learning for those that have been successful and gone before us. The other thing is that I know I compared like Plexus to cross country before on that, and specifically on that one call, and I did when I went Emerald too. But one thing I don't know if I went into detail about was that I wanted to be a successful runner. So I didn't run with the slowest runners of the pack. Every practice I ran with our fastest runners. Like, I trained at a racing pace, you guys. Like, I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to run a super fast race. And so I didn't hang at the back. I literally ran with these girls that were running like sub 18, like 18 something for a 5K. It was ridiculous. And then Ella, when she started cross country last year, I did not run that fast, Lauren. I didn't race that fast, but I practiced with them because I was determined, and I like killed myself. I just did it. But when Ella started running cross country, she was practicing with her friends and running with them. And that was super fine that she wanted to be with her friends, but we had to have a talk like, hey, like, I love that your heart is that you're wanting to run with your friends, you know, but I don't want you to only run with your friends and not be able to run at your ability, you know. And I tried to make it really light. It was 6th grade. I wasn't like, get out there and run, you know, but we had to have a talk like, you're going to be with them on the bus. You're going to be with them at practice. You're going to see them in school. And so when you're running and practicing, like, what do you want to get out of this? And that's what it was. Like, what do you want to get out of this? Because what you get out is what you put in. And when you are really truly looking at what the successful people have done, you're like, I can do that too, right? Like, we can do this, absolutely. And so just keep that in mind too, like all these things that we said. But I just remember, like, we don't want to like hang back over here. We really want to go, okay, how are they posting? How are they adding value? What books are they reading? What podcasts are they listening to? And if you follow like a lot of our jewels, they are truly posting all the stuff that they are doing and learning. And so it's right there for us to be available. And that's one way that they're adding value to all of their audience, not just their Plexus people. And that's really one way we can. That's why I keep posting about my meal plan thing, my cook once, eat all week thing. Like, that is adding value. Like, we are busy. We are a busy household. And that is one thing that I can make sure we're eating a very healthy dinner with. So anyway, now they're all talking to me again and not listening to the idea that it is bedtime. It's past bedtime. This is what happens when my husband decides to go to church unannounced ahead of time and I'm left scrambling, you guys. So buy-in from your family. Don't forget that.
Love that. And like, I just have to say this really fast because Elizabeth, you made me think of this when you were talking about running and you were like saying to Ella, you were not getting out there, like, get to running, right? And so I was thinking about when our oldest two, Cameron and Carly, when they were little, that was when Matt was in the Army. We were in Fort Benning, Georgia. And like, we were at Easter egg hunt, and literally, like, I'm just over here trying to get my cute little pictures. Carly was 1, Cameron was 3. I'm like, come on, get your eggs, And these parents were like ridiculous, you guys. Like, literally, kids are like being dragged behind. They're like flying through the air. They're like, the moms are like, get the eggs, get all the eggs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with all these Army people? And so, like, my dad was Navy. I'm like, it must be something with the Army. I don't know. But that kind of made me think, when you said that, it made me think of that story with these crazy Easter egg hunters. And it kind of makes me think a little bit about like us with our business too. Like, we don't and can't be dragging our people like that. Like, come on, let's do this with us. Like, they have to run their own race too, and they have to want it. It goes back to like what Nicole was saying about our why. Like, they have to have their own why. They have to want to do it on their own, and we can't drag them. However, as their sponsors, like, we do need to be coaching and cheerleading. Yes, at the same time, there's a balance. Like, we need to be like, yay, you did that great post, that was awesome, whatever, right? All of those things. But we do need to kind of stretch them a little bit too. Like, if they say things like, well, I just can't keep up with my 3, 2, 1. Okay, what can we do?
For you to do, right? Okay.
Look at your schedule.
Sam, no.
Look to see, Elizabeth, you unmuted or something. But we're going to look to see, what can you do? Okay, you feel like you want to do follow-up Friday? Perfect. Take all your follow-ups that you would normally do Monday through Friday and do them all on Friday. That totally counts. Like, we can work with our people and try to help them, right? But we do want to stretch them a little bit. We don't want to like put the fire hose on them, like, all right, get to work. Like, you're running this race with us, we're dragging you along, right? But you do want to push them a little bit, just a little bit, stretch them a little bit, and then, okay, then they grow a little bit, and then we stretch them again the next time or whatever, right? But anyways, I know it doesn't really necessarily go along 100% with these 2 chapters, but it just made me think of what you were saying about the race and running the race, Elizabeth.
I have a good example. So you might have seen that my just turned 23-year-old graduated with her master's last week. And that took work. And one of the sections in here about being committed to the long haul, she started her college career when she was a junior. And she had in her mind at that time her goal that she wanted to be an editor. That was her goal when she was 16. I want to edit books and I just want to be paid to read all day. Those were her goals, right? That was her dream job. But what she found along the way by taking one class in psychology was that she wanted something different. But it meant changing her major, finishing one, going on to a second. And she just decided, well, I might as well just get my master's in that. And I'm like, girl, that's another 2.5 years, whatever. She was like, but it's my goal. It's my dream. I want to do this, this, this. And I was like, oh, all right, and here she did it in 19 months. She doubled up on 2 of her summer courseworks and has done some really hard things this last year, living 1,800 miles from home, dealing with, and I know we all can appreciate this, but the 20-something girlfriend drama. But she's done those hard things because she had this really big goal in her head to have her master's before she was 24, to, dig into adulthood and get to enjoy life before moving on to other things. And I've tried to share other possibilities with her, but I see that this is her dream for now. And so I'm supporting all those things. But it's made me realize that she has a work ethic and a desire in her that I want for myself in this. A work ethic that says you can work for 8 hours at Whole Foods today and still go home and write a 2,000 word paper tonight. A work ethic that says, you know what, I probably can reach out to more than 5 people today. So it just has really kind of stretched me in the last few weeks as I realized all that she's accomplished in 5 years. That yes, it took her 5 years to get a master's. And if it took you 5 years even to get to senior Ruby, that's still more than most people get working their 9 to 5 over here. You know what I mean? So just doing it, just doing the hard things, even on hard days, even on long days, even for the long haul, staying committed, showing up, being consistent. This book, I'm telling you, it's like really pricking at some parts of me that I thought were pretty secure in the things I was doing. And I'm like, am I really doing that though? I went back and wrote a list of all my reach outs for the last 2 months on it's 2 pieces of paper, double, but I'm like, wow, if I divide that by the amount of days in the month, did I really stick to an action stack mentality, or am I back more at a 3-2-1? So just taking a look at your work sometimes in that detail might show you where you're at, and not for a comparison, but just so that you really can understand, are you really doing the work? So that consistency thing is really getting me today. But yeah, so just wanted to share that too.
Yeah, I like to write things down in my planner for those reasons exactly, so that I can make sure that I'm holding myself accountable and that I'm doing my reach outs and my follow-ups, and say that, I do miss a couple follow-ups on some of these days or whatever, then I always will go back. I'll make up for it, and then we'll go back to those days and I'll be like, see Friday or whatever, right? So that I can tell myself I did the work, that's just something that I do. And I remember when we first did our very first 3-2-1, it was called a 3-2-1 challenge back then. And Fallon asked me if I wanted to do it back in July of 15. And she's like, you said you wanted to get your products paid. Do you want to do this 3-2-1 challenge? And I'm like, well, what is it? And she's like, you have to post and you have to reach out to people and you have to follow up. And I'm like, reach out to people? How am I supposed to reach out to people? What do you mean I have to follow up with them? I don't have anybody to follow up with except my mom. She's the only one ordering. And I didn't know what this even meant. And so anyways, Lori was in charge of the chat. She was keeping up with everything. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I can't miss any of my days. So I literally did not know what I was doing, you guys. I did not know how to reach out. We did not have all these examples in Pink Power like we have now on how to reach out. I didn't know what I was supposed to post. I was literally sitting there, and you had to be done before midnight. So I'd be there at 11:45, oh my gosh, I have to follow up with my last person. I can't say I'm done until I'm actually done. And then I'm like, okay, done. right? Because I didn't want to get kicked out of this chat that Lori Welch was doing. So, oh my word, you guys, it's so funny. But yeah, it's really important, anyways, to say that it's good to write things down because it does help you to be accountable and make sure that you are, in fact, doing the things. Yeah.
I agree. Reflection's huge. I mean, just reading this chapter kind of brought it back because it also makes you appreciate where you've come from. I mean, as a senior gold, I remember back in the day, same as you, reaching out, it was super scary. And you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. And you know, spend 30 minutes trying to type out your reach out to someone and freaking out. But you realize, you know, as you keep doing the things, that things like that get way easier. And then it's other things and just, you know, figuring out that now you just have other fears and other things you need to work on and that you're going to get over it. I don't know if any of you were on the book club from Plexus overall about overthinking, but they talk about just moving through the things because you never really get over it, that sometimes you're still going to have your chicken list people where you're going to be scared to reach out to them, and you're never going to necessarily always be over that fear, but trying to move through it, acknowledging that you have, you know, some place that's, you know, holding you back and what's troubling you, but saying, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to, you know, do my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like Mel Robbins says, and push the send button and get over it. And, you know, in a month, it'll be easier. And just continuing to work on those areas and remembering where you've come from, and that, you know, eventually we're all going to be diamond and look back and be like, look at all those things we've done. Look at, you know, how far we've come, and just kind of keeping that overall vision and holding yourself accountable so you'll continue to move along that path and see that momentum. Well, it's getting close to 10 o'clock. Does anyone else have anything else they want to share before we end? Okay, well, if no one else has anything else, thank you all for sharing. It was a really good book club. These chapters were very good and got out a lot of it, things that will definitely help. So I hope you all have a great night. Thanks for hopping on, and I will see you all next week.